Welcome to Friends in Fiction, 5 best-selling authors, endless stories. Friends in Fiction is a podcast with 5 best-selling novelists whose common love of reading, writing, and independent bookstores bound them together. With chats, author interviews, and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, these friends discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place. Best-selling novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristen Harmel, Christy Woodson Harvey, Patty Callahan Henry, and Mary Alice Monroe are 5 longtime friends with more than 80 published books to their credit. At the start of the pandemic, they got together for a virtual happy hour to talk about their books, their favorite bookstores, writing, reading, and publishing in this new uncharted territory. They're still talking, and they've added fascinating discussions with other best-selling novelists. So join them live on their Friends and Fiction Facebook group page every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, or listen and view later at your leisure.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. You are here with us at Friends in Fiction, and we are so glad. I am Kristen Harmel, and I will be your host tonight. My latest novel is The Book of Lost Names.
I'm Christy Woodson Harvey, and my latest book is Feels Like Falling.
I'm Patty Callahan Henry, and my latest is Becoming Mrs. Lewis.
You might notice that we are a few hosts down tonight.
We did not kick them out. We did not kick them out.
It's sort of a recent development. So Mary Kay Andrews had to be elsewhere tonight and sends her love. Mary Alice was supposed to host tonight, but her internet is out. So I am taking over the hosting duties, and I apologize in advance for any insanity that I bring upon us this evening.
I think that's what people are here for now. I think they like the insanity, so that's good.
the messier the better. So here we are trying to muddle our way through without the 2 Marys, but in their place is the more than capable Karin Slaughter, who happens to be a New York Times and #1 international best-selling author. And tonight we are celebrating Karin's hot new release, The Silent Wife, which just debuted on the New York Times list tonight. I believe at #2 or number 10 on the print list and #4 on the combined. Is that right, Karin? Congratulations.
Yes, you're correct.
That is amazing. Good for you. And this was such a tough week too. It's such a lot of books came out, such a crowded list. So fantastic. Good for you. Mary Alice also left us this wonderful quote from your starred review from Booklist, which is Slaughter adds depth to her best-selling series with the investigations of old and current cases, while also advancing the key personal relationship. Another slam dunk. So congratulations on your slam dunk.
Thank you.
So Karin Slaughter is one of the world's most popular and acclaimed novelists. She is published in, 120 countries? That's amazing. With more than 35 million copies sold across the globe. But she's a Southern girl, a native of Atlanta. Her standalone novel, Pieces of Her, is in development with Netflix, and the Grant County and Will Trent series are in development for television. The Silent Wife is the 10th book in the Will Trent series, but if you are one of the few who have not read the series, The Silent Wife can be read as a standalone. You all know out there that every week we select an independent bookstore to highlight in our effort to support our indies, which is such an important thing, especially now, especially when so many of them had to go through having their doors closed and things like that. And this week, Karin chose a bookstore that is actually a favorite of all of us, Foxtail Books in Woodstock, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. So it's a home store for Karin and a store that has supported all of us and that we all love visiting. So hello, Foxes, and we're just so happy that we're working with them tonight. So let's see. Everyone here has had wonderful events with the Foxes. They go out of their way to take care of us and make sure that every event is special. And they will take good care of you out there too. They are giving us 10% off of Karin Slaughter's The Silent Wife, as well as all of the Fab Five's recent books. And best of all, Foxtail has signed copies of Karin's books. So hurry before they're gone. The link to the bookstore is posted on the Friends and Fiction Facebook page. And remember, you get that 10% off if you buy through that link. So Karin, without further ado, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Can you start by telling us a little bit about how you have been spending your time during this crazy pandemic?
Like this, basically, since May.
Like us.
Yeah, all my tours were converted to virtual, and then publishers in other countries found out, and they were like, "Hey, can you do that?" And so I've been doing a lot. And it's kind of good because usually, if you want to be on television in Auckland, you have to actually be there. But this way, everybody's doing it virtually, which is great. But then that's like getting up at 3 a.m. basically, because it's weird because they're not following our clock.
I don't know why.
Yeah,
It's so bizarre.
and it's like it's already tomorrow there, and I'm like, do you still have COVID? They're like, COVID? No, we got rid of that last week. We took care of it. We're 2 islands. We can do that.
That is true. How has it been not being on the road to promote this book? I mean, I assume that for your previous books, and you've done this so many times now, I assume you're out there interacting with fans, visiting bookstores. How has it been for you, aside from all the virtual events, just staying home?
Well, it's hard. It's been hard because this is a seminal year for me, my 20th. And a lot of the people, not semen, like semen, seminal, look it up. But I usually see the same people all the time. And, on one hand, it's really kind of shitty because they're like, recently they show up, these women, and they got babies, and they're like, here's a picture of me when my mom brought me and I was a baby. And I'm like, oh, go fuck yourself. I don't want to know how old I am. Why do you got to show me photographic evidence that I have aged? So maybe it's better for sales that I'm not out there. I don't know. But one thing I miss is like when you get on a plane and you're like, that's over. No, it is not. It's continuing. But it's good. I mean, honestly, I would be wearing the same clothes if I was touring, so it's not that much of a hard. Don't wear shoes. When I'm touring, I do have to wear shoes, so that's a big difference.
We don't even have to actually get dressed from the waist down.
From the waist, as far as you know, we're not
nude from the waist down. Yeah.
Kind of made an agreement about that tonight, all of us.
Yeah, it's weird though, because you're like, what's that on the floor? Oh. But I've just been adjusting, and like Mary Kate Andrews, who also has the alias like from back when she was in prison of Kathy. She lives right down the street from me, and we still haven't seen each other.
Yeah.
The only time we see each other is when we do a photo shoot. They're like, oh, we need Atlanta artists or Atlanta. Those girls will show up. Let's get them here. So it's usually her and me, Susan Rebecca White, Natasha Trethewey, who's like, why am I with you losers? I was like the poet laureate, and I'm with you guys. We're like, you should have been in New York, because this is like the top.
You're in the wrong place. It's your fault.
Right? Yeah, exactly. This is like unless Patty comes, then it like classes it up just a little bit.
They don't realize I moved, so they just keep calling me to come.
Right? Yeah.
So that's best case scenario, really.
Exactly.
The photos over there haven't figured out I moved yet, so it's all good.
It's very
That's
good.
funny.
Now it doesn't matter.
Speaking of Patty, and Karin, we have a long list of questions for you tonight, which we're excited to get to. But Patty has some very exciting news. You, I believe, have a cover reveal for us for your brand new book, Surviving Savannah. Can you show it to us and tell us about it?
I think Christy's going to pop it on the screen.
Oh, you guys, that didn't look very good. Wait. So
What's that?
I am so excited. As everybody knows, like the book it can feel really private for a really long time.
Oh, sorry.
It can feel really private for a really long time. And then when you get your cover, it's it's this public thing and it feels really, really real. So I'm really excited. It doesn't come out till March 9th of 2021, which sounds forever, but is actually around the corner. So it is about a ship, the luxury steamship Pulaski, that they call the Titanic of the South. And while she was carrying the elite of Savannah and Charleston north for the summer, she exploded. And she exploded about 30 miles off the coast of Wilmington, North Carolina. And 3 years ago, a shipwreck company found the remains of that ship and all the treasure on it. So that's what this book is about. And it's been a flurry of a day. I want to thank everyone who shared the cover. It's been, there's not a ton of good going on during COVID. And these are the kind of things that keep us going. So thanks, y'all. I'm really excited.
It's a beautiful cover. And I just want to know
Gorgeous.
when we're going to get to read what's behind that cover, because that's what I'm most looking forward to.
Well,
Right.
it comes out March
Hint.
9th, but you know how there'll be advanced reader copy giveaways and all kinds of stuff. So
I
It's
can't
beautiful.
wait. It looks amazing, Patty, and what a beautiful cover.
oh my gosh, she brought show and tell for my shipwreck book. Karin.
So I have to tell, I live in Beaufort, North Carolina, and people like really pride themselves as in like living life as a pirate. So this just makes me feel, I'm actually in my hometown today. So this like makes me feel, I don't even really notice that. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a pirate walking down the street. So
Patty
No,
is
she-
awesome.
You see, Christy, you always think it's about you and your hometown and
There's
everything.
parody.
It's about the shipwreck book.
Yeah.
There's
yeah,
no pic-
yeah.
Hear it.
Patty, is that accurate period costuming? Is that what people were wearing on the ship?
No, but the pirates who came to get that ship might have, or the pirates who were looking for the treasure of that ship might have, but
Mhm.
Clearly.
okay, tell me about your week, Kristen. How's it been for you this week?
Wait, can I first just suggest that your cover's all wrong and we need to remake it with Karin in her pirate hat on the cover?
Yes.
Karen, I'm taking a screenshot and then,
Oh, no, I do this quite often. It's not cultural appropriation. I am legitimately a pirate. I often speak about pirates' rights,
okay.
especially in relation to healthcare. Like, if you go to the doctor, no matter what, you're going to get a peg, right?
So
And-
they've got to stretch their limits.
And there's a one peg limit. And don't get me started on vision. You're going to get an eye patch. No matter what, you're going to get an eye patch.
So should we lobby for glass eyes? Is that what we should do?
Yeah, tell us, what are the platforms?
Well, mostly we're about two things, healthcare and birds' rights. Because Parody was on several ships that went down. That's Parody with a D, because he's not really a parrot. So, that's really what we're going for, is like just bringing attention to the plight of being a pirate. I mean, the healthcare, our life expectancy is about 30 years.
Usually in a gallows.
I'm right.
Or walking the plank.
Walking the plank.
Walking the plank.
And
It's just-
I'm sure they throw in burial for free, but there's
At
just
sea.
a lot people don't understand. I'm sorry.
Burial
Please,
at sea.
I'm sure you cover all of this in your book.
I do. It's a lot about that kind of thing. But I got to tell you that without Mary and Mary here, we are off the rails, and it's awesome. Okay, Kristen, what was your week like? Because I know you're worried about your kid going back to school, right?
Yeah, Christy. What
Oh,
do you
I
think
thought
about
that was for me. I thought, I don't have a baby, do I? There was that one night in high school. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Christy, what are you thinking about that? When does school start up there for you?
So school actually starts on Monday, which is crazy. So we're in Salisbury, which is where I grew up, North Carolina, not Maryland. Just for a few days. I went to see my grandmother today, and just doing this like final wrap up before school starts things, and went to my little local bookstore all masked up, and everyone was she was masked up, and I was like signing her stock, which was kind of fun because it felt, it wasn't normal, obviously, and there was no one there but the two of us, but it was kind of nice to like go sign books and, like see your book in a bookstore. I was thinking yesterday, normally we're on tour, and so we're seeing our books everywhere, and we really haven't seen them this year, so it's been kind of weird. But yeah, so we start Monday. It's a weird schedule. It's like 2 half days, no Wednesday, 2 half days, and then kind of like they gradually will start back, but who knows? And we might be all virtual, short order, where I'm preparing myself for that just in case. So what about you?
Yeah, as some of you guys out there know, I have a 4-year-old, and so he's in that sort of strange period where virtual isn't an option because he's in pre-K, so that's not really a thing for pre-K in most places. And so we have decided to keep him home at least at the beginning. I'm in Florida where the cases are a little bit higher. I'd just like to see the numbers come down a little bit, and kind of see what happens. So we actually started. Technically, school starts a week from Monday, but we started this week with my little insane I can be a preschool teacher lesson plan. And you know what? It's really hard. Like I mean, this is not news to anybody, obviously, but it's I am out of my depth, and he's only 4. So I mean, I kudos to all of you teachers out there, because that is a hard job. And I don't know how I'm going to do it.
But all the homeschool parents too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. I didn't really, and we're so lucky because I mean, even when we were doing all of this, we had full lesson plans. So it wasn't like I was trying to figure out, what are we learning in math today? Like someone else was figuring it out. But it's different, but that is what it is. So
I think it's going to be such a strange beginning of the year for everybody that I think whatever your choice is, whether you stay, you go, you do half and half, whatever, I think we're all kind of ultimately going to be on the same page. And kids are so resilient that I think whatever choice we're making for them and with them, they're going to bounce back. So I think it'll all be fine. But
what
enough
about
of that. Wait, what's that?
About pirates? Where do they?
Yeah, wait, what do pirates do about their schooling in a pandemic?
Well, I mean, this is great for us because it's like fresh recruiting, that all these kids are being raised by depressed day drinkers. So, like 16, 17. But actually, we love, I don't like children, though I have some very good recipes. But on a ship, they are fantastic because you can get 3 kids, like if they're little kids, not like the husky ones, in place of like 1 pirate.
Okay,
and,
we're going to talk about your
not
book.
working out. See ya.
We're going to talk about your book.
On that note, Karin, since we're a book show as opposed to a pirate show, which we're now going to consider changing direction because this is
And I got to tell you, I'm watching the live feed, and the whole thing is Karin has to join you every week.
I know. You are absolutely invited.
And very cheap. Very cheap. I'm just going to say that.
So were we, or free, whatever.
Exactly.
Not that cheap. Not high school.
Karin, do you want to tell us a little bit about The Silent Wife?
Sure. It's about 500 pages. It's like one of those crimes from the past haunting the present day, which I love that. They call them like sins of the father crime. There's no father in this. But I get to bring together my character, Jeffrey Tolliver, from 8 years previous. And actually, it's not 8 years. It's more than that, but I get to lie because it's fiction. But he's from my Grant County series, and he's worked this case. And in the present day, Will Trent goes to prison, not for like criminal means. He's like there to investigate. He's a cop. And so he gets there, and this inmate says, "Hey, I didn't do it," which, you don't often find inmates going, "Yeah, dog, you got me. I should totally be here." So he's a little skeptical, but then he starts looking into it, and he's like, "Holy crap, you may not be guilty of this crime. And also, the cop who put you here is the ex-husband of my current girlfriend." Mayhem ensues. There's a lot of sex and violence. So if you like that, it was a fun book to write. I really enjoyed it. I hope people are enjoying reading it. And if you're not, I don't want to hear about it. Don't put it on Amazon.
Agree.
If you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it.
Right? Don't say it online. Because I will find out who you are.
And if you're gonna say it online, just don't tag us. I
don't want to. I don't want to know.
Review.
I don't want to know.
Yeah. I had that happen once in an elevator where this guy is like at BoucherCon or something, and he said, "Wow, you got a really bad review. That was like one of the worst reviews I've ever read." And I'm like, "Okay." Like, I'm stuck in an elevator with you, dude. And so I did like the really adult thing. I got off, and as the doors were closing, I was like,
As of course, exactly.
Yeah, it was.
we don't want to hear it. Don't tag me. Don't let me know.
Yeah.
And don't
Exactly.
stop me in an elevator to tell me about it either.
Right. Well, I'm not going to be in an elevator anytime soon, so I'm
Yeah,
not.
no
worried about
kidding.
Might
There
even
you
go.
go. That is a silver lining to not being in an elevator right there.
That's right. No one reminding you of your bad reviews.
Exactly.
Well, so Karin, every night or every Wednesday night in the show, we all like to ask a question of our guest. And tonight, actually, not only do you have the three of us asking questions, but Mary Alice and Mary Kay have left questions to ask you. So Christy, did you want to start? I believe you had Mary Alice's question.
Yes, so this is for Mary Alice. All of us on Friends in Fiction support libraries. You, Karin, are an Uber supporter. I was so impressed how you are the founder of the Save the Libraries project, which has to date raised more than $300,000. Is it, do you pronounce it DeKalb County?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so, but when I saw it, I was like, I'm going to say it wrong. For the DeKalb County, Georgia Library Foundation. A quote I pulled from you: as charitable citizens, we must invest in our library down the street so that the generations serviced by that library grow up to be adults who contribute to not just their local communities, but to the world. What inspired you to begin the foundation and to be such a force for good?
Wow, that really sounds like contrary to how I've presented myself tonight. Like articulate and professional.
Busted.
Well, I mean, we all grew up in the libraries, right? I mean, that's where we got our start. And that's where I got, Daphne du Maurier, Patricia Highsmith. I'm going to be honest, I was totally into incest, loved Flowers in the Attic. Not at home, just in my reading.
Mm-hmm.
Loved the sequel to Flowers in the Attic, Still with My Brother. We're going to have children. I loved the library, and in 2008, libraries took a huge hit, and I thought, hey, let's do what we can to raise money for them. And I did a fundraiser. Mary Kay Andrews was there. I was like, hey, you want to meet me at the library? I've got a bottle of wine. And she showed up, and I'm like, our special guest tonight. And I did the same thing with a brick of heroin, and Catherine Stockett was there. So, we did this fundraiser, but we realized when you raise money like that for a library at a fundraiser, it just pays for itself. I was like, well, yeah, it sucks. Why don't we just give them the money? So what we do is we give block grants to libraries. And authors have been really generous, like donating names. And, it's not like you're asking for NAMBLA. They're like totally there. They're willing to support libraries. We all want to give back. It's children who read, do better in school. They get better jobs. They pay higher taxes. Yeah. That's like anybody can understand that. I mean, it's like such a small amount of money to invest in the future. And I think that we should be doing that. And as we come out of the pandemic, we should be looking really carefully at what services that we're going to have to cut some stuff, but we should not just say, well, libraries, that's just for fun, because it's not. Because kids need libraries so much more now than ever. And it's all about being the backbone of our education system. And, babies get like 9 months in the womb. They cannot even grow a full head, right? So like they're starting out with a deficit. So we should give them libraries as a safe place so that their heads can finish growing. I mean, that's just science.
Mm-hmm.
We should have quoted that instead of the
Absolutely.
the whole thing about being a charitable citizen.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Grow their heads to grow their heads.
Can I share a story, like an Algonquin Roundtable story about some writers?
Please.
Because you're from Salisbury, or you're in Salisbury, that reminded me. So I was at this dinner party with Fidelis Morgan, who's written a great book, a series of books about the Countess. And historical fiction, and Celia Emery, who's an amazing actress, Shakespearean trained, and Sarah Waters. And so we're all just sitting around talking, and I'm like, which one of these people doesn't belong here first, right? So I'm just sitting there trying to be really quiet. And Sarah said, so what are you doing tomorrow? Because I was in England on tour. And I said, I've got to go to Salisbury. And she said, Salisbury. And I was like, okay, I'm going to the bathroom. And I stayed in the bathroom for the rest of the party.
Well, this is a fun fact about Salisbury. Salisbury is our sister city. And my dad was mayor for a long time. So there are bronze plaques in our city hall, in Salisbury City Hall, of like the both of the city councils and mayors and stuff from the two towns. It's pretty neat, but Salisbury's beautiful.
Well, you know what? If Sarah Waters ever comes there, you give her a what for? Say, Salisbury.
Salisbury. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Patty, did you want to ask? That's awesome.
Okay,
Patty.
so Kathy Mary Kay Andrews left me her question. She said, you write some really good, really scary books. The Silent Wife starts out with a brutal murder of a nice little co-ed with a hammer.
True.
But sometimes your books have a happy ending. How does that happen? How do you find such light in such a dark and dangerous world?
First, I'd like to congratulate Kathy on reading the back of my jacket. She was a special guest in the middle of one of my touring events, and she's like, congratulations on the silent woman. She was already drunk when she got there. And she just drank it was only 10 minutes, and she just drank like one after the other. So anyway.
Well, it sounds like she read it now. So
I don't know who prepped that question for you, but way to go. Yeah, you know, I think I write all kinds of stories, like historical fiction or love stories or beach stories. No offense. Don't worry, ladies. You know, like Pieces of Her was in a beach town. And so I think I write all kinds of stories, maybe because of my name or because of the unflinching way I look at crime or the procedural element of a lot of my books. They just say thriller writer. But I'm really happy because thrillers sell a lot. I mean, if you're going to be in a genre, it's a really good genre to be in. But like Love and Death are really big sellers, especially right now. So, and I love big commercial fiction. I mean, I'm not one of these writers with a chip on my shoulder about being in a genre, except for just saying that right now. But I embrace the title. I love big commercial fiction, and that's what I try to write, and I try to make it entertaining and appealing to everybody. And also, I think when you write about really difficult things, you have to have some balance and lightness, and I really try to accomplish that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you know, it's interesting that people sometimes do try to reduce you if you write in a genre. I mean, I feel like that happens kind of to all of us to some extent, right? And what's wrong with writing books that people want to read? I've always thought that's an amazing thing to be able to do. And you know, I've always also thought that if you're getting people reading, you're doing so much good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's the vagina stigma, because if it's anything that women are doing well or enjoying, then it must not be as legitimate. You know? Yeah. And we know who our readers are. I mean, 85% of all fiction buyers are readers. Are readers. Are women.
Like,
yes. Well, some of them are just trying to show off.
I was like, what are the other 15%?
Okay.
Non-readers. So, you know,
so
we know who our audience is. It's us. And I don't think there's as much of a stigma as there was when I first started out, especially writing this kind of crime. I think people are like, hey, I really like this. I'm interested in it. It was like WAP before it was even WAP.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I have a question for you also. I am really interested in your research. I would not even begin to know how to tackle writing a thriller. I write historical fiction. I do a ton of research for that, but I think it's a completely different thing. And I've read that now you have a reliable network of Georgia Bureau of Investigation agents, retired cops, doctors, people like that, who can help answer your questions, help, flesh things out for you. But what about at the beginning, when you were researching your first novel, Blindsided, which you must have written about, I think you said 20 years ago. What did you do then, and how has that evolved over the years?
Well, my aunt, when I was growing up, actually my step aunt, but you don't need to know about that. She was the chief of detectives in the town next to ours. And so
Wow.
I saw just how horrible it is to be a police officer, but also a female police officer, because she would go to work and do this really difficult job. And, she would deal with people who didn't have respect for police officers, but then she'd go back to the station and the men there were just as awful, if not more awful.
Wow.
Because, at least she could arrest the people who were being shitty to her, right? But these guys were just unusually cruel. And you think, what little men that they can't tolerate a woman in their midst doing this job, right? So that they're so threatened that they do these awful things to her. And so that was really interesting to me, because I thought, why would you do this job? And the reason why women do this job is because they love it. And also, it's one of the few jobs where you get, one, pay parity, right? You get paid the same amount as the guys because you're doing the same job. And two, you have freedom, right? If you have some autonomy as a police officer, and we give police officers a ton of leeway, sometimes for good effect, sometimes for bad, but the nature of the job is they have a tremendous amount of power. And there's report after report about how judiciously women use this power. If you look at, we spend billions of dollars settling overuse of force lawsuits, right? And women are around 17% of the force, but they're less than 3% of these suits.
Oh, wow.
So if you hired more women, just think of the money you would save. I mean, their arrest is the same, except they go out and they don't do what a lot of men do, which is, their testosterone ramps up because they see someone who's being threatening, and their response is to be threatening back. And a woman's response is just like, let's talk. What are you upset about? What are you doing? And they get them in the back of the car, but they don't get slapped with a lawsuit. So, that's something that's really been strange to me when we're talking about, well, one, defunding the police, which we've been doing with education for years, and no one's really been upset about that. But, we should fund them in a more logical, statistic-driven way. And women are just cheaper. I mean, like across the board, women are generally cheaper. No offense to Mary Kay. But, it just seems like we would be looking at these sorts of things when we talk about how to better reform the police. And we actually did that in the 1970s. The federal government said, hey, we're going to give you a lot of money if you hire more women and more minorities. And they're like, yeah, we'll do it for the money, but we still get to be racist and sexist, right? And they're like, sure, just hire more of them, right? Which is why, Atlanta had the first African-American female chief of police, African-American female sheriff. I mean, it was just like really concentrated, because we had a mayor named Maynard Jackson who was like, hey, white power structure in Atlanta, we're going to get millions of dollars if we do this. So let's do this. And they're like, okay, for millions of dollars, we will lower our racism and sexism just enough, right? So that's the sort of thing you learn from research. And I love incorporating that kind of research into my books. And I do have a network of people. I've got some old retired, I shouldn't call them old, like they're in their early 60s. That's not old, especially where I'm sitting. But they're retired Georgia Bureau of Investigation or Atlanta Police Department women. And they've been generous with their time and told me how they feel, because cops think differently from normal people, which is by necessity. And I have a doctor who's been with me from the second book who gives me medical advice. And I try to make Sarah's stuff as authentic as I can. And it's just pulling it all together weaving it into the story. So it's not when you're reading it, oh, here's the research. Here's the story. Here's the reason. I mean, just threading that in. And I love historical fiction, actually. It's one of my passion reads. I've got the Emma Donoghue up next. And I loved Eric Larson, The Splendid and the Vile, also the name of his sex tape. Just because I love history. I love everything about it. So I like writing it too.
Yeah, I do too, writing it and reading it. It's one of just being able to learn when someone researches a book very well, being able to learn that period of history while enjoying it is, I think, a really special thing to be able to do. Christy, did you have a question of your own to ask Karin?
I do. And now that, we've been having this conversation, I want to change my question just a little bit because I'm really, really interested to hear this. So obviously, no, this is just really interesting to me. So you're obviously a very prolific writer. You have so many accolades and awards, and you are clearly in the right spot. But if you weren't a writer, what do you think you would be doing with your life?
Other than being a pirate. Other than being
a pirate,
well,
which
yeah.
is kind of.
Well, I mean, honestly, at my age, I'd be dead, right? I would have got a cut and just died, or syphilis. I don't think I would have amounted to much because I barely graduated high school. I was a smartass. I'm just going to be honest about that.
That's shocking.
We can imagine.
How you
I
changed.
wasn't stupid, but I was literally too smart for my own good, where I was just constantly getting in trouble. And even today, people don't believe that that I'm a successful writer. Like I'll say, oh yeah, I'm a writer. And they're like, oh, are you self-published? Or people who are at my house. I have a nice house. I have jackets framed in my office from books that have been #1 all over the world. And then, I'll write something that's in the Atlanta Journal and they'll say, wow, did you write that? That's pretty good. I'm like, dude, do you see these? This is what do you think's going on here? I guess in answer to your question, I'm not very believable as a writer, I guess. So I don't know what I'd be doing. I know one thing I would not be doing, because I remember this very clearly when I graduated from high school. First, my dad was like, whew, close one. But then he's like, because I did go to college, I dropped out, which if you're going to do that, write a book. But so he said to me, I'm so proud of you. And I want you to know you can do anything you want with your life, but you can never, ever move back home. And that was a really swift kick in the pants, because that totally derailed my struggling writer, but not struggling too much, plan. So, I had all kinds of jobs. My sister had a friend who owned a pest control company, and I worked for him for a little while, but it was a drug front. And then I painted houses with a feminist all-women crew. I've never been so sexually harassed in my entire life.
Wow.
Every day, I was just painting, going, oh my God, please don't talk to me about butt plugs again. And then I worked at a sign company, and I liked that. And I started a sign company, and actually I owned a sign company for many years. And I realized, oh my God, every single year I get older. It's not stopping. And I wanted to be published by the time I was 30. And so I sold my business, and I worked for a very good friend of mine who's a wonderful man, in exchange for being able to concentrate more on writing. But if that hadn't worked out, I don't know, prison?
It's a big question. I think
we're glad it worked out.
No kidding, right?
Yeah. Patty, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Patty, do you have a question? The question that we'd love to ask our guests?
Yeah. So we have this one question, Karin, that we love to ask everybody. And hearing you start to talk about your dad, I know I've heard you talk about your dad telling scary stories to you and your sister. So I want you to talk about that. But The question we ask everyone, which I love, is what the values of reading and writing were in your home growing up. Because I want to know how that is for you in the context of writing today. Was the reading and writing important to your parents, or was the storytelling, did it have like a direct impact on what you do now?
This is how much reading and writing were in my home. We were like,
Wow.
my parents bought the books because they had the bookshelf, and they were just sitting there, and they were the right color.
Wow.
Yeah, my dad encouraged me from the get-go, but it was really weird. I've always been weird, and it was just,
You're not
the
weird.
thing is, people who are weird, they don't want to be weird. So they're not like, I'm weird, but I'm at that age where I'm like, okay, damn it, I know I'm weird. And my dad really embraced that. And, I got in trouble in school a lot. Like, remember when those like baby on board
Yeah.
signs? Well, I thought it'd be really funny to make it say dead baby on board. And I parked it in the parking lot at school. And that was like, my dad had his own parking space up there. And they're like, Howard, he's like, okay, I'll be up there. I have my lunchbox here. I taped a picture of Marilyn Monroe after the autopsy onto it. That was one. And I remember like, it was that. And I'm like, I'm making a comment on beauty, Dad. And my dad looked at the principal and he said, look, she's weird. We know
Wow.
she's weird. And this shit's going to keep happening. And stop calling me up here for it.
Awesome.
And so that was a relief, to have it just out there in the open and have him in my corner. But he was the one who said, you want to be at the library? We'll take you to the library. He loved that. He had a really hard life. He grew up dirt poor, like literally sleeping on the dirt in a shack that the family squatted in. So that he was able to have a daughter who was that lazy was sort of a compliment to his hard work. But also he loved my stories because I'm the youngest of three girls. So my earlier work was about my sisters being mutilated or being murdered. And I mean, they weren't mysteries because nobody cared. They were more like, happy endings because I was an only child. And so I would write these stories and he would give me a quarter every time I wrote them. My demographic was squarely above the age of 30 because my sisters hated him. And so I was just encouraged from a very young age to write about really brutal things. I have my dad to thank for that.
Awesome.
Wow.
Is he
I
able to see your success? Like, is your dad still with you? Is he able to see your success?
Oh, yes. No, he's still around, alive and kicking. He loves it. And, he's a great dad. He had three girls and his mother was in a horrible abusive relationship with my grandfather, who is no longer with us. And we're very happy about that. I mean, he was just an awful human being. And so my dad made sure we all understood money. I mean, we've all been self-employed, that we all understood how electricity worked and how plumbing worked and just like a basic knowledge of things so we wouldn't get ripped off. And he made us open up our first banking accounts that were in our names. And, so that was really important to him. And as an author, you don't think about that, but you're self-employed, you're running your own business. You got to keep up with that stuff, the business end of stuff. And you have to understand it enough so that if you're successful enough to have money, that you don't lose it because somebody says, hey, I can take care of everything for you, so he gave us a really strong foundation in like the manly arts that women just generally weren't taught when I was growing up. And his mother certainly wasn't taught that.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
That's great.
Sounds like
Yeah.
Really interesting dad. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't want to date him, but
No, we're good. We're
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
He's a good looking guy. I mean, it's a thing.
So this is great. I feel like we could talk about all of these things all night. This is wonderful. But we love, look who's coming in.
Look who's showing up.
Oh, right in the nick of time.
So as we're waiting for Mary Kay to get here, I just wanted to remind you about Foxtail Books, our bookseller of the week. They are offering a 10% discount on Karen's and our new releases. The link is on the Friends in Fiction Facebook group page. So order from Foxtail and you support the author, the bookstore, and the literary community, which is a win-win-win. And you get a discount and a signed book to boot. And who do we have here?
Welcome back.
Oh, look, it's the silent woman.
It's a silent woman with a prop.
They've never heard me silent before, Karen.
No, none of
What
us
did you all
have.
talk about? Did you talk about me, Annie?
Yes, I asked your
A
question,
lot.
and it was a really rich and deep and profound answer that Karen gave. So,
She refused to answer it, didn't she?
yeah, she did. Did.
Well, welcome back, Mary Kay. Kathy, we are happy to see you. We were actually just about to get to the part of our program where we ask reader questions or viewer questions, people out there who are listening and watching. So we pulled a few ahead of time, and we'll also be pulling some from the live feed. So if you have a question for Karen, post it now. Patty's keeping an eye out for them. But Christy, did you want to read a couple of the ones that we pulled ahead of time?
Yes, absolutely. So the first one is from Rose DeLoach, and she said that in the book you state every year there are over 300,000 reported cases of missing girls and women. And this is obviously a horrific fact, and she just wanted you to illuminate that a little bit.
Well, fortunately, a lot of them come back. And that's also unfortunate in a way, because it skews that statistic in a way that a lot of police officers take a sit and wait approach, especially when it's a young girl or a woman of color. So it's something that can work against us in ways. And, you understand when over half of them are going to return or be found, or, stranger abductions are very rare, but you would think they'd be on more of a war footing. And that's actually kind of a pet peeve of mine lately. It's like, okay, well, we got that statistic. We got the fact that every year, almost 250,000 women report being raped, right? And that's just two reports that's 18 and over. And that's just what the FBI keeps as far as statistics, because, most police forces are really small and they don't report a lot of their statistics accurately. And a lot of police forces, they're like, nah, she wasn't raped. We're not even going to investigate that. We're not going to file a report, So as a society, we just accept a certain level of violence against women, where there's domestic violence, sexual assault, harassment. Some of us, especially Kathy. Well, Kathy, you're almost over that hump, right? Because from the age of like 18 until you're about
90,
50,
like me.
well, 40 or 50, one of the main reasons, like statistically, that you could die is going to be homicide.
Wow.
Right? Usually from an intimate partner.
Yeah.
And you're more likely to be a victim of rape. And so that statistic dies down until you get into the Kathy years, and then it like shoots back up. So I'm like in the sweet spot right now. I'm nearing that sweet spot between rape and murder, and, but that's just what we live with. And we're like, oh, it happens. What are you going to do? We get airplanes hitting towers, that was awful. And of course, shocking and such a profound loss of life. But the number of lives lost, and then subsequently with the wars, that's not even close to the number of women that are killed by intimate partners just in like the last 5 years, or abused, and we're like, what are you going to do? We have a war on drugs, but we don't have a war on violence against women. And part of that is because a lot of men who are in charge, it works great for them,
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of these guys, they grew up during Jim Crow. Why would they want to change anything? It works great. I mean, if I was part of the patriarchy, I'd be like, screw you bitches. This is great. You're not getting any of this. But
Yeah, you look at the cop down in St. Simon's,
right.
who the police basically covered up for him. He had threatened his estranged wife and her boyfriend, and the judge didn't take it seriously. And the cops didn't take it seriously until he went out and killed his wife and her boyfriend, and then himself.
Yep.
After the cops chased him.
Well, but 40% of all police officers have had a charge of domestic violence against them.
Yeah.
And let's say, okay, 20, let's just half it. Let's say half of them are lying, which isn't even statistically possible. That's 20%. And they have badges. I mean, why do we live with this? We're 51% of the population. Why are we living with it?
Yeah. I mean, I've known some really good cops, and they've helped me a lot with research over the years, and it's certainly not everybody, but when you put people in power that have their own issues.
Right. But that's the thing, Kathy. It's kind of like saying not all men.
Right.
We know that it's like we're starting at a baseline that this is not everybody, I think. And not to like jump on you about it. And I feel really bad because this is your show, even though you bailed on me, but whatever. But yeah, of course there are good cops.
Yeah.
Of course there are. But what are we doing to stop the bad cops?
True.
And of course there are good men. But hey, good men, stop these guys from raping and killing us.
Yeah.
Just stand up to it.
Yeah.
Patty, did you want to pull one quick question from the live questions?
It doesn't involve rape.
I know, right?
No, this is such an
You
interesting
knew what you were
discussion.
getting. You knew what you were getting.
No, I was actually just thinking this is so great because every Wednesday we have something totally different, and this is totally different. I love it.
It's
Karin,
amazing.
keep going. This is great.
I mean, I'm scrolling through the live questions, and 90% of them are about how much fun you are and will you have a drink with them in Atlanta. That's from my college roommate. Then we've got, there's lots of people wanting to know what's going to happen to your characters next, so we're not going to let you answer that. But one thing I think is really interesting, and you kind of hit on it when we were talking earlier about what we would do if we weren't writing, and it's what would you tell your younger writer self today? When you first started writing, what would you tell your younger writer self today?
You will get more contracts. That's a big worry, right?
Yeah.
When you first start out, it's like I had a 3-book deal, so I didn't start sweating until the second one, and then I just worried and worried and worried and worried, and knowing that you're going to have more publication contracts gives you a freedom as a writer, because people don't think about, we do this, we love doing this, and in Kathy's position, she wrote for years with very little pay at a place called the Atlanta Journal. So she knows, I mean, we're not doing it for the big bucks, but we do have mortgages and things. So taking that worry out of the equation, I think lets you write more freely. Yeah. And there's so much to worry about when you write a book about pleasing people. I don't think about my readers when I'm writing, but I am aware in a way, because I remember what it felt like when I first was a college student for that very brief time, and I was poor, and I would save up to buy a hardcover book from my favorite author. Yeah, and I read it, and so I've spent so many hours working because I made like $4 an hour, and then I had to work those hours, and then I spent my precious time reading this book, and if the author just kind of phoned it in, I'm like, what the hell, man? This is my life you're messing with, and I love your work, and so I never want anybody to feel like I'm just phoning it in. I got to do something different each time, and I have to feel proud about what I'm doing, because it is a craft, and I want to get better with each book, and I want each book to be more difficult to write, because that's where you learn how to be a writer. Yeah. So, but taking that stress out, am I going to get another contract, or, am I going to be able to feed my cats? That sort of thing is very meaningful. So I would say to my younger self, you'll have at least 20 books.
And you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Very okay.
I don't know about that.
So someone just asked, I gotta tell this one. Michelle Marcus just asked, are Mary Kay Andrews and Karin really good friends? Because Karin's really teasing her. You need to tell everyone you guys live near.
How long have I known you, Kathy? Like 3,000 years?
Feels like it to me.
Yeah.
We live close. Geographically, we don't live far apart, but
we never see each other.
writers have very isolated lives. So it's like when we come out of our caves, we did come out of our caves back before the pandemic, right, Karen? We met for drinks and lunch with a couple of their local writers.
Oh, that's right. Who was that? That was
It was
Joss
with
and
Jocelyn. Yeah, it was with Jocelyn and Lynn Cullen and
Susan Rebecca White.
and Susan Rebecca White. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We met at Leon's, and it was really good fun. But you know, it isn't. I love the idea that we're all going to Manuals, which is the writer hangout in Atlanta. I love the idea that we're all going to go to Manuals. We're going to sit in the back room and toss back some cold ones and talk about craft. But the reality is, we're going right back into our caves.
It's true. It's true.
Speaking of the writing cave, we are getting very close to running out of time, but Karin, we just wanted to ask you quickly, do you have a writing tip for our listeners out there? We always like to give kind of a quick writing tip that they can take home and use.
Just a tip.
Just
yeah. You know, it seems like I'm being kind of an asshole. But maybe I am.
You
okay. But just do it, right? You know, we all have a reader come up and say, I got a great idea for a book, you write it and we'll split the profits. And it's like, you know, the idea is actually not the hard part.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Everybody has at least one idea for a book, or like the opening of a book or whatever. And it's figuring out how to express it through a storyline and how to hang it on characters people care about and how the plot's going to fit together. And if you're writing a thriller, how the misdirects are going to work. And, you know, you have to really sit down and write it. And that is the hard part, right? It's like, you know, I'll talk about Sarah Waters again, because I mean, she's actually a friend of mine, except for rudely correcting me at a dinner party. But she told me, everybody always asks where I get my ideas, and I just steal them. I'm not allowed to say that. And I'm like, I'm going to tell everybody you said that. And I have. But it really is not the idea. I mean, if you think about Crime and Punishment, I mean, it's about a freaking piece of bread. Chinatown, water rights, who cares? You know, it's the characters and the story and how you fit it all together. And that is the work of being a writer. And if you want to be a published writer, or if you want to just be a really good writer, sit down and figure out how to do it. And that is just the tip.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Thank you. Christy, did you want to tell us a little bit about the newsletter, which we announced last week?
Yes. Sorry, and the home phone is ringing. I forgot that those still happen. Last week we announced our newsletter, and the response was phenomenal. So if you want to subscribe, our sign up is on our Friends in Fiction Facebook page, and also our website, which is www.friendsinfiction.com. It's just one more way for us to connect with you. It's filled with a special Q&A with our guest of the week, our notice of events, and this week's spotlight is on Mary Alice Monroe. So those of you who had already subscribed definitely got a treat.
Great. And I also wanted to just give you all a reminder that the book club is meeting for the second time. The Friends in Fiction official book club is meeting for the second time this Monday night. Last month, they got to talk about Hello Summer by Mary Kay Andrews. And this month, they're going to be talking about the Book of Lost Names, my book. So I will be joining them Monday night at 7 o'clock on the Friends in Fiction official book club page. We'll save spoilers until the end because I know some of you still have not been able to find the book. I'm so sorry about that. It's hopefully going to be back in stock really soon, everywhere, hopefully. But join us there and we'll talk about the book. I'll take your questions. Brenda and Michelle are doing a great job over there. Make sure to join that book club. And we'll put that link up on the Friends in Fiction official or on the Friends in Fiction Facebook group page. So that is our program for tonight. It always goes by so fast. I thought, you know, with fewer of us here, we were going to have so much space to fill, but I feel like we could talk for 3 more hours and we wouldn't be done. So this was so good. And Karin, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And again, congratulations on your new novel and hitting the New York Times list right out of the gate. It's such a high spot. That's wonderful. We're so happy for you. And to all of you who are joining us tonight, remember, if you ever miss an episode, you can catch it on our website, friendsinfiction.com. friendsandfiction.com. I speak for all of us when I say we are delighted that you choose to spend your Wednesday nights with us, or if you're watching later, we're thrilled that you've come back and found us. So please join us in the Friends and Fiction Facebook group page and meet us back here on Friends and Fiction next week when our guest will be our dear friend, Christina McMorris. Thanks again, Karin, and good night, everybody.
Thank you, Karin.
Bye, Karin.
Bye.
I know where you live.
I don't care.
Watch out for those cookies.
Oh,
Well,
she's a
that
trip.
wow, that was amazing. She's hilarious. Kathy, you missed the beginning where Patty was doing her cover reveal and Karin popped back up in a pirate hat with dreadlocks.
That sounds like her.
It was like
She
was
changed her
waiting
name. She had her name on her screen as K-Dog, and during that, she changed it to K-Darg.
I saw that. That is hilarious. I don't even know how to change the name on my
I
screen.
don't either.
And
No,
was
she's
in the middle
so
of the
funny.
show. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get to ask her about her Instagram post today.
Oh no, and Christy, I didn't give you a chance to talk about a debut novel either. I apologize. Or
No,
the
it's
novel
okay.
you're
I'll
gonna-
talk about it. It
we'll-
doesn't
we'll
come out
post it.
for ages, so we'll talk about it next week. It's no big
Perfect,
deal.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But Karen's Instagram today, now that y'all know her, you'll find it even funnier. It says, I have a bumper sticker that says honk if you think I'm sexy. Then I just stood at green lights until I feel better about myself.
I saw that. I saw
That's
that.
amazing. She was a trip. She was awesome.
Yeah,
It's funny.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and poor Mary Alice missing out on that tonight. That was too bad. but-
No.
And I just love hearing about her family growing up. You think somebody who's sold
Yeah.
to 120 countries and 450 billion languages and, you know, #1 bestsellers would be like, yes, I grew up in a house with a library full of books.
Yeah.
And it's not what
Do you,
happened.
do you know what's so interesting though? And I'm gonna just badger the statistic because I don't remember it completely, but I saw it, like on the wall of the bookstore bathroom or something. But it was the statistic about the number of books that you have in your home is directly related to your child's reading level. And it wasn't even like
No way.
how many you pick up and read to them.
Yeah.
I mean, which I guess would be proportional because it's presumably, but she said she had a lot of books in her house.
Yeah, she
that
did.
weren't necessarily being read. And I thought that was so interesting because, I read that and I thought that's so strange. And they were like, just having the books in your house helps your children be better readers, which I think is really kind of cool.
Wow.
You know what was interesting about the background she talked about though is she's been so prolific and obviously does a lot of research and she's just really good at what she does. But so some families maybe instill in their kids a love of reading or teach a love of reading. It sounds like her family taught hard work and really and valuing hard work and valuing like those things those are essential components of making a writer too.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we don't often hear it, especially since we're asking that question, what were your family's values about reading and around reading? But there's so much more that goes into what makes an author, isn't there?
I think
Well, and
sometimes if you come from a working class family, I mean, I come from a working class family. My parents were white collar, but they were not college educated. And it was like, you work, you get a job, you babysit until you can do something else. My mother got me my first job as a cashier at the A&P and basically told the manager, you're going to hire her.
Yeah.
And, every summer when I got home from college, I had a job and my parents were like, you have to save $500 over the summer or you're not going back.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, my first job was at Wendy's in the drive-thru.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but
it's like a junior Frosty.
Exactly, delicious. Suddenly I'm craving.
I put extra French fries in my friends' bags, but
Awesome.
I just thought what was super interesting also was how much her father honored her in her words, her weirdness. I would never call her weird, but like he didn't try to fix it. He just honored it. And I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it gives her I'm sure that's a huge component of giving her the individual voice that she has today. I mean, if you grow up with someone who tells you have to conform, there's a chance that eventually you're going to conform. But if she grew up with someone who just said, be you, and that's okay, and what a gift to the world. Now look at all the books that she's written that are because she's her,
Yeah. Well, this is back to like 5 minutes ago, but I think if you look at something that the five of us have in common, we all work really hard. Like
Really hard.
we are never expecting that we're gonna write a book and it's just float out in the world and it's gonna sell a bunch of copies. And I mean,
Yes.
for sure, that's something that was always instilled in me. And it was, you know,
Except
you
for
have a
this
job.
morning. Except for this morning.
Except for this morning,
When you
my
weren't
mom and I were
working.
having coffee.
And the
Mary
kids
Kay was
got in the
mad.
bed with you. Then your
Sure.
sister forgot to wake you up.
No, I had all these excuses, but
Blah,
I
blah,
did.
blah.
But I finally got my acknowledgement.
Then your
from-
invisible dog chewed the cord to the computer.
Yeah.
Somebody was like, next you're going to blame it on your dog. And I was like, well, I don't have one, but I'm not going to tell y'all.
Oh, that was so much fun. That was.
I'm sorry I
it
missed it,
was.
but I'm glad I got
And
in for the very last.
I'm glad you got to pop back
You'll
in.
have to. Yeah, me too, especially because of the friendship you two share. But you'll have to watch it later. It was.
I will.
I love how every. You know what? I love how every week we just pivot to something slightly different, and that was such a such a
Yeah.
joy. It was different. It was a different voice for us, and I loved it. It was great. She was
And
fantastic.
Kathy, Mary Kay, she talked about you a lot. You were on the show without being on the show.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I know, exactly.
All right, girls.
right.
My
Talk
husband
to you
cooked me
in the
dinner, so
morning.
I'm going to go have dinner. But yes, I will see you all at approximately 6:45 unless Christy has some other lame excuse.
I mean, I know. I'm the queen of them.
We should start making a list of Christy's lame excuses in like one long document.
Yeah, like tomorrow,
Exactly.
it's like I have to leave at 7 a.m. to drive to a book event. I know. It's such a bad excuse, but it
You
is,
could do what
unfortunately,
Patty does
the
and get
truth.
up an extra hour early. But
That will never happen. That
no.
will never happen.
Even if I have to get on a plane or a car, I
am happy as a clam to write at midnight to
Okay.
make up for it, but not at
Oh,
5 a.m.
I
Okay, well,
can't.
we'll see you at
I
midnight,
can't.
girlfriend.
See you at
Okay.
midnight. I will get home.
Yeah, exactly.
I get home at 11:45 tomorrow night, and I will write it then, and I will text all of you.
Okay, good night.
Good night, y'all.
my
Good night, everybody. I know. So much laughter. Good night.
Bye.